I used to do deliveries for a junkyard. Once or twice a month, I'd do a big all-day route that would take me up to the next few cities. I would drop off parts at other yards and pick stuff up for customers. On those days, I would routinely get home between 8 and 10, despite leaving a little early around 6 a.m. usually. That day, there was busy traffic. It was 1 a.m., maybe a little later, and I'm finally in the home stretch. I decided to just drive the work truck home and get my car in the morning. I'm coming down the last hill, which was a straight shot, about 10 minutes from my house. And in the road there was a giant dog, a coyote, or something in the middle of the road. I've got zero options to swerve, so I just plow through, hit the brakes hard, and hold tight. I felt the thump and the truck rolled over it. I pull over and get out. I grab an axle from the back, thinking if it is alive, I'll put it out of its misery. But there was nothing. No blood, no tracks, and there was nothing under the truck. There was a new dent on the truck, but it was clean. No hair, no smell of blood in the air, no yelping, nothing. I'm looking on the side of the road, and the grass wasn't too high. If something had drug itself in there, I should have been able to see it. But it felt like I was being watched, like eyes were on me from all angles. I got freaked out, threw the axle back in the bed, and floored it. The next morning, before driving the truck, I confirmed there was a brand new dent in the bumper. It was a shiny, clean spot, like something hit it hard enough to take all the dirt and oil away, but left nothing behind. Nothing under the truck, no fur, no clothes, nothing. I dropped the truck off and drove by the spot in the daylight. There was nothing in the road, but the night before, I know I saw eyes in the dark. They were reflecting back like animals do when hit with headlights. I have no idea what I hit that night, but it dented a full metal bumper, made the truck hop like it rolled over a good-sized curb, and kept going like it was nothing. Four years ago, I'm driving across the Colorado-New Mexico border at around 4 a.m. and I'm looking for a place to stop for fuel. I happen to come across the smallest and saddest little farm town with only one tiny gas station. I hadn't seen another car for hours. It's freezing cold, and it felt like this town was abandoned. It was that quiet. It was honestly kinda cool to stumble upon, but it was really cold outside. I'm pumping my gas and I'm feeling like I'm completely alone, until I notice another car in the shadows near the back of the building. It was a flashy lowrider with completely tinted windows, and four guys that looked like they were out of a gangster movie just leaning on the car. I remember laughing because they startled me, and they were wearing the black shorts, the wife-beater tank tops, and the knee-high socks. But keep in mind, it was freezing cold, it was the middle of nowhere, and they looked so casual. Without a word, all four got off the car and walked straight towards me, until I could see the full sleeves and face tattoos under the pump lights. I dropped the gas pump, fired up the motor, and did the greatest 0 to 100 miles per hour that old truck had ever seen. Not 20 seconds after, I see headlights swerve out and follow me. Little did they know, my beat-up looking Dodge truck had the Hemi motor and a couple of upgrades. They never had a chance, and after a few miles, their headlights disappeared in my rearview mirror. I didn't think much of it, and even laughed at how bad I outran them. That was until my buddy that was a cop told me about the Mexican cartels running drugs through there to avoid the interstate, and at that point, I wasn't laughing anymore. This story is from my grandpa. He's a retired long-distance truck driver, and he often drove throughout the night and early hours of the morning over unfamiliar roads. This one particular day, when my grandpa was in his 30s, it was between 2 and 3 a.m., and he was driving down a twisting country road that was so narrow, only one vehicle could fit at a time. So if two vehicles met from different directions, one would have to pull off the road and let the other pass. The road was empty, except for my grandpa. On the right side of the road, there was a thick forest, and on the left, open fields and a lake. There were no street lights. The only light came from my grandpa's truck and the moon. It was pretty lonely. My grandpa was going steady down the road, going a bit faster than he should. He was listening to the radio and probably not paying much attention, when he suddenly felt hands on his shoulders and a voice whisper his name in his ear, so close that he felt the breath on his skin. He recognized the voice. It belonged to his mother, who had passed away a few years previously. Naturally, this spooked my grandpa, and he instinctively hit the brakes. Seconds later, his headlights lit up a pile of 3 crashed cars that took up the entire road. My grandpa stopped just short of the wreckage. but if he hadn't braked when he did, he would have plowed straight through those cars. The occupants in the crashed cars were all severely injured, and my grandpa was able to get emergency help. Had he joined the pileup, it probably would have meant a more dire outcome for all of them. There's a number of explanations for what my grandpa heard and felt, but my grandpa truly believes it was his mother giving him a warning. I was driving through the Rockies in Canada on a cold October evening. My youngest son got altitude sickness, so we had to take him to the hospital, and the closest one was in Jasper. Our hotel was in Banff, and we had no spare clothes or anything with us, so we had to drive back even though it was dark and cold. As you can imagine, there aren't many vehicles at night on that road in October, and it wasn't a drive I would ever do again in the dark. After about 15 minutes of driving, we were shocked at how fast a car came up from behind us. They then tailed us really close for about half an hour. We weren't too concerned about it at the time, because it feels lonely up there. Anyway, eventually, the car overtook us, and they weren't going much faster than us, which was really dangerous because at the time, we were going around bends in the road, and as soon as they passed, they sped up and disappeared. About another half an hour later, we passed the car as it was pulled out into a turnout. It had its lights on with the full beam setting, which we thought was odd. As soon as we passed them, they again set off and tailed us with their high beams on. We were scared by now, as it was really unusual behavior considering where we were and at the top of a mountain. After a few minutes, we decided to slow down. We pulled over without stopping to get them to pass, which eventually they did, and again they sped off. To this day, it scares me to think why they did this and what their intentions were. It could have been nothing, but it was really odd in the moment.